27.3 million Filipinos have already been inoculated against COVID-19, and that's fully vaccinated. But that is still a far cry from the 90% needed to reach herd immunity.
But that figure goes up in Metro Manila, where more than 80% of the population is already fully vaccinated. This, according to the Octa Research Group, may serve as grounds to ease restrictions in the capital to alert level 2. Add to that, all 17 LGUs in the region are now low risk for COVID-19.
But while vaccination pace is picking up, vaccine experts are now making the case for a third dose. This as more and more of those who got their jabs in the initial rollout back in March are getting infected with severe COVID.
Good evening, I'm Gretchen Ho.
I'm Robbie Alampay. You're watching The Big Story. So far, less than 1% of the fully vaccinated population have reported breakthrough infections. But experts are warning vaccine efficacy may wane 6 months after inoculation.
That's why the medical community here and abroad have been pushing for booster shots. But in the case of the Philippines, where a huge chunk of the population has yet to get their hands on a first dose, is this the way to go? Mobile journalist Jacob Lazaro has the big story.
They were lucky to be among the first Filipinos to receive the COVID-19 vaccines in March this year. But it's been more than 8 months, and vaccine experts are now warning the immunity of those who got their vaccines early may have already waned. Vaccine expert Dr. Ronjean Solante says more vaccinated people are turning up in hospitals with severe COVID.
Kasi meron na rin tayong mga na-admit ngayon, bakunado sila, but they still develop severe infection.
Numerous studies have shown that the effectiveness of COVID vaccine starts to weaken after 6 months. The first sector to get their vaccines in March include health workers and senior citizens. Solante warns them to be extra cautious.
You have to be quickly compliant with the health protocols. May mga gatherings, paliban mo na yan until such time you get the third dose.
But the Food and Drug Administration says out of the 20.3 million fully vaccinated in September, only 642 breakthrough infections were reported, far below 1%.
Yes, we do have breakthrough infections, but thankfully they are still few compared to what we would statistically expect.
The whole medical community around the world agrees that booster shots are needed now. But for the Philippines, this is a tricky balancing act between those who need their boosters and those who haven't even gotten a single shot. Dr. Lim Quizon said the rollout of the boosters could start sometime this November. But the government is waiting for the official recommendation of the World Health Organization and the approval of the FDA.
Kung ano yung ginamit mo dati, yun din ang pambuboost sa'yo. Okay? Hindi mo na tayo mix and match.
As it turns out, vaccine supply is not a big issue in the slowness of vaccine distribution, according to Dr. Lim Quizon. We still have 38 million COVID-19 vaccine in storage and more are still expected to arrive. Mobile journalist Jacob Lazaro, we are One News.
Is it a race against time to roll out booster shots in the Philippines? To discuss, joining us tonight, Lulu Bravo, Executive Director of the Philippine Foundation for Vaccination. Dr. Bravo, welcome to The Big Story.
Good evening, Gretchen and Robbie. Thank you for having me tonight.
Dr. Bravo, a lot of people, we started giving shots around March. People are starting to count 6 months from that time. Ano po ba? Kailangan na po ba natin ng booster shots?
Well, this is something that the scientists have been long studying. You know, we have only had 1 year of vaccination abroad, right? December, wala pang ang 1 year. And right now, they're seeing that after 6 months, there is really indeed some form of waning immunity. And it's not only in one vaccine. It's almost in all vaccines that we have used. Pfizer, wala pa sa Astrang reports, but Pfizer and Moderna have already announced that they're going to have booster doses. For Sinovac, that is also being reported by Chinese officials, health officials. You know, I got Sinovac and I have now on my 7th month. I have not had my third dose yet. And I'm really expecting that I will be receiving my third dose in any time now.
Okay, but in the meantime po, although sa NCR medyo mataas na yung mga fully vaccinated natin, in the rest of the country, we still have about more than 70% of our population na hindi pa vaccinated, wala pang first dose. So, how do we prioritize between giving booster shots and taking care of those na wala pang kahit isang shot?
You know what, Robbie? The good news is that, yes, almost 80% of NCR are already vaccinated. But in the provinces, really, we need to have equity. Yung lahat ay mabigyan. Hindi lang yung nasa NCR, but also the provincial population, sabi nga nila. And what I heard so far is that ang problema is the distribution and maybe the storage, or maybe people in the provinces lack the awareness or lack the necessary information that it is now available and they can already avail. Pwede na po nilang magpabakuna sa mga probinsya kasi dinala na rin yung bakuna doon. And this is what the experts and the government of health officials are really trying to do, to give vaccines to everyone. That is what we call vaccine equity. Unfortunately, not everybody is yung pag-distribute yata ang nagpo-problema. And some people really need to be aware. Paano ba natin mabibigyan ng equity? Sa NCR, maganda kasi halos lahat ng ating mga municipalities are already big on distribution, and sabi nga natin, meron pang nagre-report na 100% na ang kanilang distribution. At yung 100% ng adult population nila, sigurado na, kaya nandun na sila, high na silang magpapigay sa kanilang mga pediatric patients, right?
Okay, Dr. Bravo, maraming salamat po. That was Lulu Bravo, Executive Director of the Philippine Foundation for Vaccination. Further reinforcing the need to ramp up vaccination are the rising cases of COVID deaths in the Philippines. Just last Saturday, the country logged its highest death count on record for a single day at 423. This is alarming, says Octa research fellow Guido David, especially since this is the first time that the percentage of deaths to cases is now at about 10%. He says the surge in provincial cases may be behind this trend.
I don't remember this happening anytime before. We're still on a downward trend, but because the cases, there are cases still rising in some parts of the country, in some of the provinces, the death rate might be higher in these areas than compared to, let's say, the NCR.
These are the other big stories tonight. Gasoline prices are up for the 10th straight week, but a bit of relief though, as diesel and kerosene are set for a rollback. Tala spokesman Harry Roque, who has ambitions to join the International Law Commission, accused the rallyists who stormed a New York restaurant of intentionally causing harm. And it was like a scene straight out of a Halloween flick. A man dressed as the Batman's Joker attacked riders in a Tokyo train, injuring 17. These big stories after the break.
Good evening. You're still watching The Big Story. I'm Robbie Alampay.
And I'm Gretchen Ho. Tala spokesman Harry Roque is accusing Filipino protesters who stormed a New York restaurant of deliberately causing harm.
The group denied the allegations. They said their only intention was to condemn Roque's nomination to the International Law Commission. Maricel Halili has this story.
Stop the killings in the Philippines! No justice! No protest erupted at an upscale restaurant in Manhattan on Friday as members of human rights group Bayan USA flocked to cocktail reception for presidential spokesperson Harry Roque. But even before they reached the third floor to confront the palace spokesman, security officers blocked them.
How dare you protect a war criminal? We are leaving! Stop the killing to the Philippines!
The demonstration continued outside, sending out a message to Roque he's not welcome in New York. For them, Roque is not a human rights lawyer but a violator and should not be nominated to the International Law Commission.
If you are supporting someone like Harry Roque, then you are supporting the killings, you are supporting the political assassination. Our number one objective is to again condemn his nomination. That was a reception that he and the Duterte administration had put in place in order to lobby for his nomination.
Roque deplored the demonstration, even alleging that the group deliberately damaged property and caused harm after two elderly waiters were reportedly injured. Members of Bayan USA deny these allegations. In return, they asked Roque where did he get the fund to pay for a classy resto. Roque, who is one of the 11 nominees from the Asia-Pacific region vying for a post at the International Law Commission, has yet to comment on the matter. For News 5, Maricel Harili, We Are One News.
No more extensions. Voter registration for the 2022 elections has ended. Let's take a look at how it all went down. Due to the month-long extension, around 400,000 were able to register. That exceeds the target of 300,000 new registrants. The COMELEC also reported 1.6 million newly registered overseas Filipino voters since the deadline ended on October 15. This brings the total registered Filipino voters to 63 million. That's greater than COMELEC's target of 59 million. With a high interest in next year's polls, the COMELEC says the challenge now is to ensure a safe and fair elections.
Definitely po, nakikita natin na talagang napakataas ng interest ng ating mga kababayan dito sa darating na halalan. So we have to really make sure na yung mismong elections should meet their expectations, free and fair elections.
And here are the election stories we're watching. Presidential candidate and Vice President Leni Robredo is visiting Camarines Sur as part of her trip to Bicol. Robredo says she is not affected by trolls even after nearly 6 years in office. The Vice President also agrees with the public vetting of President Duterte's appointees to the COMELEC en banc in 2022. In Bohol, presidential aspirant and Senator Manny Pacquiao once again gave away 1,000 pesos in rice packs to residents. He stands by his prior statements that his actions do not constitute vote buying, but he says it's only a form of providing assistance to those in need. Senator Ping Lacson is backing paid internships to bolster the youth's role in expanding the economy. In a presidential forum, he also expressed openness to a joint venture with China on oil explorations in the West Philippine Sea, as long as a 60-40 split is followed, favoring the Philippines. COMELEC has inked a 536 million peso contract with F2 Logistics to distribute election supplies for 2022. The deal would cover the transport of ballots, vote counting machines, and other paraphernalia. The company has ties to Davao businessman Dennis Uy, a known sponsor of President Duterte back in 2016.
The Department of Environment will soon lift the ban on open-pit mining, undoing the work of the late Secretary Gina Lopez. Mobile journalist Pamela Vasquez gives us a front seat to that story.
The government is finalizing a draft order that will lift the ban on open-pit mining. This comes just 7 months after President Duterte lifted a 9-year-old moratorium on new mining deals. The Department of Environment and Natural Resources says they're turning to mining now to help boost the economy.
We need to identify sources of revenue so that our economy can recover. One source that we are looking into is the tapping of our mineral resources.
But NGOs such as Alianza Tigil Mina challenged this idea.
If we stretch it to the last 30 years, the economic contributions of mining has been insignificant. Hindi lumalampas sa 1% ng GDP ang ambag ng pagmimina sa ating ekonomiya.
The ban on open mining was enacted in April 2017 by the late former DENR Secretary Gina Lopez. Mining companies have long insisted that open-pit mining is a globally accepted and safe method of extracting minerals. But Alianza Tigil Mina countered this.
What used to be a mountain or at the minimum a hill, which has its own biodiversity of plants, animals, and insects, that is gone already.
At least 2 mines will be reopened. The Tampakan Mine in South Cotabato and the Silangan Mine in Surigao del Norte. Both are known for their copper and gold deposits. Leones says Secretary Roy Cimatu has created an office whose sole purpose is to enforce environmental safeguards.
Now our chambers are beginning to invest on environmental conservation and protection, and they're even assisting the government in really restoring some of our natural resources, our forests. So I think it's different now.
But again, Alianza Tigil Mina questioned this.
We do not believe and we do not trust that the DNR has enough expertise. They do not have enough people, and they do not have enough political will.
The draft order allowing open-pit mining once more is awaiting Secretary Cimato's signature. Mobile journalist Pamela Vasquez, We Are One News.
Pinoy horror movie buffs are in for a treat. With the Opato Cats, they might shake, rattle, and roll. Regal Entertainment has been uploading full movies of the franchise on YouTube. Shake, Rattle, and Roll has 15 installments across 3 decades, beginning in 1984. It is the country's longest horror franchise, and the longest film series at that. One installment will premiere every day, from October 25 to November 8. In a post, the company also tells the public that it will bring back their most requested horror movies, from October 25 to November 2. What's left for viewers to do is to prepare to scream. Nick Garcia, We Are One News.
Time for another quick break. When we return, the string of price hikes is halted, at least for kerosene and diesel, as a rollback is set for this week. But the uptick continues for gasoline. And the Joker suspect in a knife and fire attack in a Tokyo train has been arrested. A look at the horrendous crime after the break.
Good evening. You're still watching The Big Story. I'm Robbie Alampay.
And I'm Gretchen Ho. Maynilad has finished its pipe realignment activities along Sobriedad Street in Manila ahead of schedule.
Still, many residents were inconvenienced over the weekend as the concessionaire's mobile tanks arrived late and failed to meet demand. Shaila Francisco with the details.
Imagine waiting for water from sunrise to sundown. In the case of Valley, that took 15 hours from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. She was part of a long queue of Pandacan residents, all hoping to get water supply from Maynilad's mobile tanks.
Hirap po, wala pong tanghalian. Nag-aantay ng pila, baka masingitan po kami. Nahihilo na po ako.
Maynilad had interrupted its services last October 29 to realign pipes along Sobredad for the Public Works Flood Control Project. It may have deployed tanks, but barangay officials complain the ration is not enough and does not follow the schedule. Some barangays like this sought the help of fire trucks to get water supply, as some residents are complaining that their stored water is not enough for the 3-day water interruption. Social distancing was hardly observed the moment residents rushed whenever a fire truck arrives. Some residents even accused fellows of cutting in lines.
Kasi kanina pa kami alas 6 nakapila, nakabantay. Tapos ngayon, may andyan na yung tubig, may mga drum na malalaki na dumarating. Wala yan sa pila.
Maynilad has already apologized for the delays in its water tanks.
Nagtatagal din minsan yung pagstay nila sa mga delivery point. Kaya po nade-delay naman yung susunod na schedule nila na pupuntahan. More or less mga 3 to 5 barangays for every truck yon. More or less mga sa computation namin, sa bawat isang buong araw na deployment do sa truck na yon, roughly mga around 630 na household ang kaya niyang supplyan.
But all's well that ends well perhaps, as Maynilad has finished its realignment activities at 3 p.m. today. Water interruption would only last today. The water concessionaire assured affected customers that it would still deploy mobile tanks until its operations go back to normal. Shaila Francisco, VR1 News.
Today marks the 10th week that oil prices will go up. But this time around, consumers get a bit of reprieve, at least for diesel and kerosene. For gasoline, though, prices will see a 1 peso and 15 centavo per liter increase starting tomorrow. Diesel and kerosene will see a price rollback. That's 35 centavos and 30 centavos per liter, respectively.
In other news, Jorge Madlos is the face of the New People's Army. How will this death of the affect the communist movement? Let's find out from One News Defense editor Manny Mogato. Manny, how does the death of the spokesman impact his movement?
Well, the death of Caoris or Jorge Madlos will not mean the end of the rebel movement. Well, he was the face of the New People's Army, but journalists who have covered the CPP, NPA, and adversaries in Mindanao knew him too well. Defense Secretary Lorenzana said his death was a big blow to the NPA, and military spokesman Colonel Ramon Sagala said it will severely diminish the capability of the rebels. Most of the leaders of the rebel movement are in their 70s and late 60s. But I don't think it will have a dent, it will make a dent, because as long as there are injustice, neglect, corruption, inequalities, there will be NPAs. And surely they can find a replacement for him.
Okay, in the meantime, Manny, in another part of Mindanao, soldiers also killed the leader of Dawla Islamiyah, who had replaced Hatib Sawajan as emir of the pro-Islamic State militant forces. How will this impact local Islamic militant groups?
Again, just like the NPAs, an ideology will not go away if a leader dies. Osama bin Laden's death did not end the Islamic militancy. After Al-Qaeda, the Islamic State emerges. And here in the Philippines, the death of the Jan Delani brothers did not end the Abu Sayyaf. Isnilon Hapilon rose to head Southeast Asia's Islamic group and occupied Marawi in 2017. So, Salahuddin Hassan's death will not really mean the end of the Islamic militancy or the Abu Sayyaf in the south. The slow rehabilitation of the Marawi and could fuel anger and frustration among the people there, and this is a fertile ground for recruitment for Islamic militants. And the BARM continued to struggle financially to implement reforms in Muslim Mindanao. So as long as there are neglect and inequality, the more people will continue to rise and threaten the peace in the South.
Okay, maraming salamat Manny Mugato, One News Defense Editor.
For the big story in sports, in the NBA, the Los Angeles Lakers turned in their best defensive performance of the season so far as they defeated the Houston Rockets 95-85. LeBron James, Anthony Davis, Russell Westbrook, and Carmelo Anthony all scored double digits in LA's victory. The win now puts them at 4-3 in the standings. Meanwhile, in the other NBA games earlier today, the Dallas Mavericks hold off a late surge by the Sacramento Kings to get the victory 105-99. The Charlotte Hornets, meanwhile, blew past the Portland Trail Blazers for a 125-113 victory. The Milwaukee Bucks also lost its third straight game after falling to the Utah Jazz 107-95. Lastly, the Brooklyn Nets dominated the Detroit Pistons 117-91 for their fourth victory of the season.
In world news, a man dressed as the Batman's Joker attacked passengers in a Tokyo Express train line Sunday evening. The 24-year-old man injured 17 people, including a man in his 60s who is now in critical condition after being stabbed. The attacker allegedly also started a fire using lighter fluid. Witnesses uploaded videos on social media showing the commotion inside the train. Passengers panicked, running away and squeezing out of the train's car windows. The police arrested the attacker on the spot. Local media reported that the attacker wanted to kill people so he could be sentenced to death. In Imus, Cavite, a vaccination center has had its thriller night last Friday, but it breaks away from Michael Jackson's lyrics. Its creatures actually saved residents from the beast about to strike, that is COVID-19. Lo and behold, medical frontliners dressed up as ghosts, witches, and evil beings. Not only is their transformation entertaining, it is also a means of keeping their mental health in check. They've been working for long hours since the onset of the pandemic. Imus is also preparing to kick off its pediatric vaccination this month, and the kids better watch out and better not cry as the city's eyeing a Christmas-themed inoculation.
Puro kami trabaho. Lahat talaga. Para mabigyan lang ng konting kasiyahan ng mga tao.
How reality depicting. Gusto ko yung may naka-PPE tapos may puyat lines dito.
Oo. Hindi, pero nakakatuwa naman, di ba? I mean, they get to let their hair down, so to speak. And at the same time, they're still doing their work. Eh, tuloy-tuloy pa rin hanggang Pasko, Christmas theme.
It was so nice to see different people wearing different costumes on social media, posting on Instagram kahit di nakakalabas masyado. Pinaka natuwa ako sa costume ni Heidelin Diaz. Ang dami nag-BS as Heidelin Diaz.
Ah, okay.
Oo.
Dapat may dala-dala rin silang mabigat.
Oh, parang mga bata kasi yun. Pero ang pinaka-uso ngayon, napansin ko, yung Squid Game. Kaya hindi ka nag-celebrate, no?
Hindi na, wala na. Nanood na lang kami.
Well, it's a holiday today, so it's a good time for everybody to rest. And actually, speaking of rest, I got to talk to Chairman Manny Pangilinan a while ago, and he hasn't been resting. I was with him on a holiday. Tomorrow po, i-air po natin yung interview na yon on the latest TNT Championship. Abangan po ninyo.
Oo nga.
Well, that wraps up today's big story. Catch us again tomorrow at 8 p.m. on Signal Channels 8 and 250.
Please like our Facebook page, One News. For more in-depth analysis, visit our webpage, onenews.ph. Mask on.
Wash hands.
And stay safe, Philippines. I'm Robbie Alampay.
And I'm Gretchen Ho. We are One News. Have a good evening.